Welcome everybody. Today we are going to be talking about the CIM Project Suite and how we can use the pipe network Civil Express tools to quickly model our existing networks. My name is Kyle Groves. I'm an EIT with ATG USA. Today is September 19th in 2019. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about why would we want to use pipe networks for existing utilities anyway, before we get the Civil Express tools involved. Well, first and foremost, we want to check for conflicts. And when we're checking for conflicts, we need to make sure that we're obviously not going to run into anything or be too close, like our domestic water with anything else. So what we need to do that, and how we have often done that as engineers and designers in the past, is to put those objects all together in a profile view. And manually drawing circles and reading charts and keeping a little scratch paper Post-it note next to your desk about where things are supposed to be is just tedious. And the whole point of using Civil 3D instead of AutoCAD, of using AutoCAD instead of paper drafting in the first place, is that the more data rich our models become, the more we can automate away that tedious work. And pipe networks inside Civil 3D are really great once they are set up for doing that automation. My pipe will automatically be put into my profile view at the correct scale. It will read that vertical exaggeration. It will tell me my station and my offset information once it is relative to a particular alignment. But it will only do that after we've gone through and modified that stuff. So that's why we might want to use the official Civil 3D pipe network for this stuff in the first place. However, the CIM Project Suite can again take us to that same level of automation and moving forward. So proper surveys do give us all the information we need to model utilities. In fact, most plan sets have all of that data in the first place. It's just in the form of a line or a label. But we need to extract that information and turn it into that data-rich model. So modeling and modifying pipe networks is a huge pain out of the box. Most of the things that we have to do one at a time, or we have a really poor interface with which doing that. One of my taglines whenever I'm teaching people about pipe networks for the first time is that using pipe networks are great once you're done with them. The worst part about using pipe networks is using pipe networks. And that's with all the out-of-the-box stuff. So the CIM Project Suite has a couple of tools available to us to help us get things done without all those headaches. First up, we're going to be using Pipe Designer. Pipe Designer is a tool that gives you a spreadsheet to modify a pipe run inside the software. And because our surveyors went out into the field and they gave us measure downs, and they gave us pipe sizes, and they gave us inverts for all of this information, we've already got it, and Pipe Designer is going to help us quickly and easily assign those inverts to those pipes and structures. After that, though, we might still have just gone in and plopped down all of these parts in 2D without a whole lot of forethought. So we'll use the other tools in the suite to help us make sure that we have things correctly. Part Swapper is going to help make sure that we have all the correct pipe sizes going into our pipe network. And then Part Tagger is going to help us make sure that we've got all of those key annotation parameters put together. So I mentioned before station and offset information. Well, in order to have station and offset information, we need to be referring to a specific alignment. And there's also a reference surface that we can use to kind of help speed this stuff up. So with that, that's enough intro for now. Let's go ahead and hop into the software. Drawing one, nobody likes drawing one, poor drawing one. But I can see here I've got my project. I have an existing an existing surface drawing. I went out and I grabbed my survey. I've got all of my survey figures. And with this, my survey, he told me where all of my rims were. He told me where all of my structure inverts were. And then my survey user-defined properties were able to convert their measure downs for all of those different pipes into a invert of the pipe itself. So I've got through here, I've got my pipe on the west end, the north end, the south end. This information already exists, but I don't want to manually put this into a profile view. So that's why we're going to go ahead. We're going to create a new drawing for our existing utilities. We're going to data shortcut that existing surface in here, and then we're just going to go ahead and plug and play. Now, I've already started some of this process for the section of my existing storm utilities in the north side of my project. We're going to do this south side from scratch. But over here, I simply just took my pipe network and I started dropping down parts. It's all about getting that 2D information in first. We don't care about the rules. We don't care about even necessarily some of that reference information. What's my reference surface or any of that, because we're going to go back and modify that using the Civil Express tools. But step one is get these all laid down. And I'm going to come over here and we can work on that now in the south side with that XREF. I can see all those surveys. And in this particular drawing, if you were at my last webinar earlier in the month, last month we talked about having pre-populated pipe networks. In our drawing, all of those styles, most of the labels, they refer back to layer 0, which means that they're going to take on the properties of that network. So I've got my proposed stuff in here, but we're obviously going to be using the existing network. And instead of creating a new network in that scenario, I'm just going to edit the one that already exists in my drawing. Now, if we go into our pipe network properties, obviously we've got some things for the info, for the layout. Again, want to make sure we've got our parts list here, but I'm going to leave off the reference information and just kind of change my naming structure. Got those counters going, and we're ready to go. So with this, I'm even just going to drop down the same structure on all of these. I'll put down my manhole structure, and then I'll stick with the 12-inch pipe on these. And step one is to kind of simply come in here and drop down my pipes and structures. So since these were survey points through my XREF, the node snap is going to work fantastic for me. I'm just coming in here and we are dropping down all of our pipes and structures, and we're going to come back in here and we're going to modify this information in a minute. I'm going to start again from the from the other side of the street. These ones did not connect across. They just decided to run 2 lines in parallel out in the field this way. And they all meet up at this manhole to go get shot off into the Minnesota River off to the east. This is the ATG building in Bloomington, and actually I live pretty close to over here. I can see it on the map on that old site, so it's pretty great. But we've got our networks, we've laid them down, and now it's time to start using the CTC CIM Project Suite to help us get this existing model put together more quickly. First up, we got to make sure that we have the right inverts. That's going to make everything else easy. So I'm going to start off with Pipe Designer, and Pipe Designer allows you to go through and design by a pipe run. So I'm going to select my first structure, and technically these are all connected, and I don't really care about the slopes, or at least designing them, so I can do this all in one go. Once I have Pipe Designer up, I'm going to use my zoom in drawing to kind of give myself a little window to go through and page through things. So this first structure, structure number 24, as it was listed out, I've got an invert of that structure of 82107. And then I want to be designing by invert over here. And I'm at 810.64 on the top side. Now I want my west invert of 80645. Then my next pipe is just that east invert, and it's 80635, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to run through and jam out on these for a second. Now, since this is also can be used for design tool, we can see other things are happening across here. I've got my drops auto-populating for me. My sumps are also beginning to auto-populate for me, and I want to go back and change those. But first up, we're just going to make sure we get all of these pipe inverts and the structure inverts set correctly, which I realized I forgot to do for this structure invert up here. Apply those to the drawing. It's yelling at me about my rims. We'll go back, we'll change the reference surface later, and we can make sure that that goes through. Again, I'm just gonna go through these zoom states in here, and it's gonna help me pan through these different pieces of information without actually having to leave the tool. Real quick, I'm going to put those structure labels on here just so that I can, or all of my labels on here so that I can get these put together. Understand them a little more easily inside the dialogue. But we can see that it's pretty straightforward. Make sure that your inverts are good for your structures, because without an invert or without a structure invert, you can't really get your pipe inverts set up correctly either. And existing structure 27. That was that label I just put through. Next up, we're going through this pipe down here. So that structure 800.57. Then it's coming in at 800.57. So now, if I were to look at these parts in Object Viewer, I can see, I messed up one of those, but it's really easy for me to go back in here and get those put all back together. Because as long as I know what invert or what structure and what pipe I'm working on, then I know which one of my things are going on here. And also this positive drop here is indicating to me that I might have a problem. Actually, it's, sorry, 26s. So I just go through. So 25, 806.353, 806.45, there it is. 803 2/3, 803.77, 803.67. Now these tools do a great job of eliminating a lot of human error, but if you type the wrong key into the keyboard, then you're not going to get things to come out correctly. So this is how we're going to use Pipe Designer to go through and populate our structure invert and our pipe invert data. And again, the surveyors already gave us everything we needed for that. What's going to happen next? Well, I need to go through and I need to check my design to make sure that I've got all the correct pipe sizing information and the correct structures being placed into my drawing. So this is where I'm going to use the part swapper tool. Now, part swapper is something that some of you may be saying, but Kyle, why did CTC write a tool to swap parts? I can see the swap part right inside my contextual ribbon for working with pipe networks. Well, you're right. That tool does exist. However, what it does not tell you is that you can only swap one part out at a time. So when I have those multiple selected, it's going to ask me to do just an individual one. Then I get to choose my pipe or my structure information. What it doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to go through and do that in bulk, which is what part swapper is for. So for part swapper, I'm going to go through and I'm going to go find all of my different pipes information. So I know, and I'll do all my 18s. So I know this is an 18 right there. I know that this is an 18, sorry. We're doing 18s down the trunk line. And that's my only 18 over here because everything else is converting off to 24s. I'll go check the other part of my network. And I can see that this is an 18-inch pipe as well. Now, I've got these two different pipes. I can come through and change my pipe to a different part inside my part list. And I can keep going and confirm that I've got all of my 24s now. So this is a 24, that's a 24, and that's moving on to 26s. Back down here on my south side, checking through my inverts, making sure that this east pipe here, this is a 24, and that's a 36. I go ahead too and grab all of my structures because you don't only have to do pipes at once. You just have to pick and make sure that you're working with the correct information. So now when I'm grabbing all of these, what were originally placed as manholes, I can change my pipes and my structures at the same time and keep everything consistent. So when I'm running the tool now, I still have all of the ones that I went through and I selected. I can reselect my parts dynamically, or I can say, you know what, this entire network needs to be converted from all of the structures that I pick and all of the pipes in that network, change them over. So this replacement structure is my catch basin, and this replacement pipe is the 24s. You can see here, these blocks just changed. That is, of course, because I now have that rectangular catch basin style structure, and my structure style is obviously calling back to a particular block that I'm using to populate that symbol for. My pipes just keep getting a little bigger, and I know that this is working, not only visually on the screen, but my description, that is also updating as well. Last run through here, going to get all those 36-inch pipes bumped up to the size that they need to be. It's just this one down in the south. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the structure style. And in case you do accidentally grab some structures and you only wanted to change the pipes, vice versa, you can just leave that pipe, the type that you're not interested in changing, just leave that at do not change. And now I've got my 36s. So in about 10 minutes, I've got all the right sizes, and it would have taken me a little bit longer to make sure that I went through and grabbed all of the correct inverts. But again, it's filling out a table. It's as easy as that. Next up, we need to make sure that these labels are going to work correctly when I put them into any sort of station and offset information. So if I freeze those XREFs, because I'm kind of done with that now, and I can leave the annotation information up to my actual pipe labels. I can come through here, and I can add labels for my network, go data connected pipes, and why not link the description slope. Whenever I add labels in Civil 3D, I really like to go through from the contextual ribbon. Whenever your add labels is this top command, this will add your dialog box. And you could say, Kyle, I just wanted a single part plan. Why didn't I choose the single part plan add label button? Well, because it's going to use a default value that was specified deep, deep, deep within your template. And generally speaking, I like automation. I like to have things, click a button and make it happen. But when it comes to labels, the information that I'm interested in getting on the other side of that is usually kind of situation specific. And I really like the opportunity to predefine and confirm my style. For me, that's not time wasted because I know I only have to do it once. So once I run that, I can now come over here and I can see that at least in this network, I've got my station and offset information. Well, this was my, got some duplicated labels. We'll only run that command once. And up here in the north, I had a station and I had an offset being determined. About 47 left and 60 right, and the reference alignment for these parts up here, this is set to American Boulevard. And American Boulevard is this generally running east-west alignment, and that's great for all of the pipes that are associated with American Boulevard. But when I had my reference alignment like not set up at all for all of these parts down here on the south, I don't have any station and offset information. And even when I was running this up here and I had a reference alignment specified as American Boulevard, these manholes right here, those were installed running off of the street 34th Avenue South. So I actually don't want this station offset information relating back to American Boulevard. I want to change my reference alignment, and I don't want to do that one structure at a time. Go into your structure properties, go into your part properties, change the reference alignment. Now this is 34th, and I got to do that one at a time. I can't do that automatically out of the box. That's where the part tagger tool comes into play. So with part tagger, I can simply come over here, grab all of these pipes and structures that I'm interested in, and I have a bunch of different information that I can change. These first four values, this is stuff that you would use typically in a Civil 3D table. So choose Nina grate, such and such. Choose a closed frame or an open frame. This is made out of capital C-O-N-C conc, or is this made out of sentence case concrete? You can go through and you can change that data for all different types of things. As far as design data is concerned, up here, I'm in Minnesota, office of ATG. So Minnesota wants you to put all of your structures in your manholes in 1/10 of a foot below the whatever surface you're using. So you can use this to define your actual design data for those parts. You can also use this to put in design data for your sump depth. So in this case, in Minnesota, it gets real cold. We don't want that sump water to freeze. So we don't design with sumps typically up here. My reference surface for all of these is going to be EG. And then for these parts, again, I was saying 34th Avenue for my reference information. Now, this pipe has just updated. Be based off of 34th Avenue South for that structure and station offset information. I'll come down here, I'll grab all of these pipes and structures, and I will tag those parts, again with 0 sump. And now this one is that apple tree square alignment. My station and offset info just populated for that as well. If I come in here, I didn't have a reference surface. I didn't have a reference alignment stated for any of those. I'm referencing EG, I'm referencing apple tree square. So with these tools, you can now go through and you can create your existing networks as a utility. And kind of, why would we want to do that? Well, I'll save this drawing. I'll confirm that I have my existing utilities created as a pipe or as a data shortcut. In fact, they are. I want to make sure that that is the one from this drawing. Overwrite that link. And now when I create a new drawing, I can just throw in my data shortcuts for my surface. I can throw in my existing pipe network. I don't have my alignments, but if I did, the styles are different in this drawing. I didn't go through and do those, but I can create my brand new pipe network, and I can now come through with my sanitary and start dropping in dropping in some parts for here. Get that alignment from my network. This is gonna be pretty quick and dirty. Grab that surface profile. And now, how do I know that my sanitary design is correct? How do I know that my water design is correct? Well, I can just come in and add in those parts to my profile view from that existing network. And I can see that my sanitary is pretty good vertically. I might have to kind of do some redesign over here, and I didn't get those upper pipes over there done because these pipes should have been a little lower anyway. But I don't have to guess that my sanitary network is designed correctly. I don't have to guess that I have those interferences happening because these pipe network objects just make all of this design and question and verification so much easier. So with that is how we can use the Civil Express tools to our advantage to increase the data richness of these models. So in conclusion, surveyors are probably going to give us all the information we need to model the existing storm or sanitary pipe networks. Pipe Designer makes it really easy to modify those pipe networks quickly and accurately. Part Swapper makes it easy for us to just kind of go through and drop down our 2D layout and come back and pretty quickly make sure that we've got the correct parts, the correct structures. All of those can be done much more quickly and much more automatically than out of the box. And then lastly, Part Tagger lets us make sure that we have the correct annotation information for those parts, if we're going to be putting in station and offset labels, or if we care about that information. And then it will also help us in the proposed to throw in some design information as well. And then that is today's presentation. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. At this point in time, I'd like to open up the floor to questions. So I've got one from Bryn. Instead of just throwing things at the wall and going back to search for everything that's wrong and fixing it, why not just draw it correctly from the get-go? Well, you're right, Bryn. That is always an option. When I'm coming through and I am designing this and I put these parts down, I could have defined in my network I could have gone into my network properties and I could have said, use the correct surface, use the correct alignment. I could have said that I wanted to put in my pipe rules to say, you know, go to -2% slope, make sure you have this minimum cover. But unfortunately, we don't always do this right the first time. It would be perfect, but you're gonna have that time where you're in a hurry. You give this to the new guy who's not that skilled with Civil 3D. They go in, they put this down, and they put it down wrong. So yes, of course we can we can put in the correct part. You know, I can come in here, I can edit my network, and instead of this structure being that manhole, I can make sure that I go through my parts list and I say, you're a catch basin. You're a 24-inch pipe. When I snap to that node, I know that my next pipe is going to be 24 inches. I can just define it. And that's great. But the reason why these tools got made, the reason why I wanted to go through this workflow today was to show you that in the rare event that we don't do it exactly right the first time, then we have an opportunity to quickly get ourselves back on track. Does that make sense? Okay. And yeah, these tools are not an excuse for not doing things right the first time. But you know, I'm 28. I've been in industry for about 5 years. If I could design everything right the first time, I'd be retired by now. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people on this call that are much more senior than me, and we're all still working. So get it right the first time is always the goal, rarely the achievement. All right, anybody else with some questions? More than happy to stick around for a few minutes. All right, got a question from Chris talking about when we're in Pipe Designer, that's the tool that gives us the spreadsheet information, do we have an opportunity to check the cover? And at this point in time, that answer is no. We don't have that data populating in here. We don't have the opportunity to design based off of that. This is something that I believe is on the development list for the tools over at CTC. If it's not, I will confirm that it is. There are a few more improvements that are planned on here. For example, with the design method, we can match inverts or we can match crowns. We're working on increasing the intelligence of designing with a crown factor. We're working on some tools. I'm not sure if this is going to be part of Pipe Designer or part Tagger. It might be a whole brand new tool. But we're also working on tools to be able to basically take a spreadsheet file, because most firms have their own design information already in a spreadsheet. But how can we take your firm's spreadsheet and use that to populate the data for our pipes? So maybe it's the existing survey. Maybe it's your own hydraulic checker that you use for a simple pipe size check. But how can you take that information from what your firm does specifically and go ahead and suck that in and out of Excel? So I don't have a release date. I don't have all of that stuff, but I know that is something that CTC has in the hopper. And a lot of these tools, folks, these tools were created by suggestions just like these. You know, checking the cover in spreadsheet view, somebody else already asked that question, and I get that a lot. But these tools were created by users indirectly through their ideas. Some of these tools were also created as partnerships with other firms. Sheet Generator, this was a tool that CTC worked with Kimley Horn to create. Data Wizard was a tool that was the brainchild and took a lot of effort in with Bolton and Menk up in the Midwest. Point File Converter, this came from SEH, another good firm up here in the Midwest. So a lot of these tools were set out with the functionality that they have to solve a problem and get that solution to market. But there is additional functionality planned for just about all of the major tools that are currently in here. There are going to be 2.0s, 3.0s going in there. Another question from Bryn, can we change the pipes through Part Tagger? And that answer is yes. I'm so sorry for having not covered that before. In Part Tagger, we have all this info for structures, pipes. There's a little bit less annotation that goes on in here. It's all pretty straightforward and in the part data already. But again, we can change the reference surface, the reference alignment. Also have some Manning coefficient data that you can populate for the rest of that stuff. But the reason we can access that through the tool is because that is data that exists in the pipe part properties. And in there, we have the opportunity to define that reference alignment with that OTB way. Did that answer your question, Bryn? Or were you talking about the tool space? All right, so I could use that tiny little spreadsheet view there, but I am just going to go into the panorama editor for here. When you right click on the header of the panorama, that will tell you all of the different things that you can modify. And we do have reference alignment. I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of crap so that I can actually see it. So I can come in here and I can do that for one. Now if I grab and attempt to do this for all of these and change that to apple tree, that will work. So you can do that in bulk through the existing. That's the reference alignment, the reference structure, that's kind of newer functionality, and it wasn't necessarily the design intent of the original tool. The original tool was kind of more for those people who are using Civil 3D tables to annotate the rest of this stuff, and it's these really buried pieces of information that part builder would be defining as the material, the frame, the grate, or the cover. The rest of these stuff were add-ons. We wanted to give somebody while you're in here and modifying these things in bulk anyway, the other stuff you'd be interested in, a surface adjustment, a sump, a reference, surface or alignment. So just because the tool, the functionality exists within the CTC tool doesn't mean that you absolutely can't do it out of the box. But most of those things were done in that fashion, was to address out of the box shortfalls. So for example, in the sheet generator tool, if you use the profile views command, that's just a copy of the create multi-profile view. And so some of these, kind of have that same, we're duplicating functionality, but we wanted to go ahead and make that single sourced as much as possible. Does that make sense? Awesome. Still see quite a few people around. My next appointment isn't for a little bit yet. More than happy to stick around and answer any more questions you guys have about the pipe network tools in the Express tools, or even just some pipe networks in general. Very good question. So when you download the tools, you get the ribbon launched into your Civil 3D. It's a partially loaded CUI for you tech nerds and CAD managers out there, but there is a button up here that says contact support on the ribbon, and it is also in the tools. If you just go through this support button right here, what happens is you will be redirected to a web page on CTC software to generate a email support ticket. If you're in the US, that would be serviced by ATG, my company. We are the American reseller. There are other resellers in other countries. But basically, it's just going to prompt you out, help you fill in some of that information about the support. At ATG, we have a 2-hour commitment that you will receive a meaningful response related to your problem within 2 business hours, everything. So if you contact us at 9 p.m., you'll be waiting a little bit till tomorrow, but that's how ATG support works. You can, as always, give a call related to the CTC Express tools, even if you are not an ATG Autodesk customer. If you are an Express Tools customer, go ahead, give us a call, 1-800-935-4894. Tell us it's an Express Tools issue, and we will get on the phone with you to help make sure that it's not a bug report. If it is a bug report, we'll send that off to CTC. This is also the same form that you would use to request a feature. And again, if that's not already a feature, we will pass that along to CTC, or if it is, we'll show you where that button is and how to get that done. All right, we've got another question from Jessica. Have you looked at adding functionality to draw or add pipes and parts with a tool rather than modifying what's already there? Kind of. So right now, the way that Pipe Designer, one of the tools we were talking about today, that's the spreadsheet one. With Pipe Designer, the goal of this tool is to design in a run. So you would use this tool to, do your trunk line first, make sure you're starting from your high point, go down to your low point, and then you can come back and you can do your laterals later. It doesn't matter if you're uphill, downhill, the tool reads it all the same and makes sure it knows that you're going in the correct direction. But this is just about modification. So how do you get those tools to populate? How do you do that? I know that CTC's developers are at work with this, and that kind of comes back into that functionality of something that we're exploring. And we're not sure if that's going to be part of a new tool, if we're going to kind of split that functionality out into the other tools like Pipe Designer you would use, and you could load in your HGL and your EGL information, and then you can use that to kick back and forth between H&H software. We're not sure if this is going to be, all in one new file, one new tool that's related just to like spreadsheet information and populating data or adding data, but some format of more stuff and from a spreadsheet is on the list of things that CTC is actively exploring. But yeah, as far as how you want to do that, Jessica, please feel free to, and everybody else here, feel free to write that down. Because I can think about how I want a tool to populate that data my way, but that might not be the way that you'd want that tool to populate. So when you have these feature requests and stuff like that, go ahead and write it down. Give us as much information as you can about what you would want that tool to do. And then more questions. How do these tools interact with StormCAD? They don't. And not just StormCAD, not just SSA, which is the Autodesk H&H software. These tools interact with Civil 3D. So they don't give you any more information about how to operate with those other softwares than Civil 3D does. The current workflow for that is your Civil 3D model has as much data as it can handle, and then you would export that out with a file type to get into those other pieces of software. Now, I don't use StormCAD. Yeah, so right now these are only working with pipe networks. And once you're talking about working with other Storm software, I'm one of the folks at ATG who does do some SSA training and consulting. So like when you're talking about SSA, you know, not every design has to have a pipe. Sometimes you have channels. There's no good way in Civil 3D to define a channel in any sort of format that storm and sanitary analysis is going to use. There's no way for Civil 3D to recognize a channel specifically as a stormwater conveyance system. And so that right there limits your operability with SSA or StormCAD or any of those other file formats. Has that been your experience as well? And then follow-up question, does StormCAD have any sort of like import from spreadsheet and it just boom, populates? Does that functionality exist in StormCAD? Sure. And that's where kind of that whole like pipe network from spreadsheet tool, that's what CTC is currently investigating. Is that even possible? How would that user interface look like? These are questions that are being asked and answers are being looked for, because Civil 3D has a lot of instances where it would be great. It's the nice first place to start for laying your stuff out, but it's not always the best place to start. And there are a lot of firms that do all of their layout or start their layouts from the H&H softwares like StormCAD or SSA. Yeah, I will definitely make sure that that CTC gets that feedback, that people are really hungry for import network from spreadsheet, or to be able to spit that back out. Because the concept of that whole using a spreadsheet to populate information in Civil 3D, that CTC's already proven that concept using the CIM Manager Suite tools. So I know we're here to talk about the CIM Project Suite, but this does dovetail in nicely. So the Layer Boss toolset and the Survey Template Manager toolset, what these do is these operate on the principle of they take certain information, like all of your layers, they suck all of that info out from your spreadsheet, out from Civil 3D, and they put it into a spreadsheet. Then you can modify that spreadsheet to your heart's content, add, delete, control, or copy, paste. The tool also looks at other things like what are your plot files, what are your plot standards in use. Anyway, it puts it all into Excel. You work on it in Excel, and then you just suck that information right back up into Civil 3D, and it gets brought in there. So planning out those major template changes is already something you would probably be doing in Excel. And now this Manager Suite toolset allows you to take that planning from a spreadsheet and suck it into Civil 3D. So you don't have to manually recreate all that work. As always with these tools, folks, I can't believe it took me this long to get here, on the CTC website, ctcsoftware.com. Just go over to the products, fly down, and we've got the CIM Project Suite, the CIM Manager Suite, and the Corridor Productivity Pack. All of these tools, you go to their header, and you can download and you can demo these tools for 2 weeks for free. There's pricing, there's brochures, there's little descriptions with bullet points, and even like a 1 to 5 minute long video that tells you exactly what this tool is supposed to do and why you think that why we think that it's important for you. So if you need to send this off to somebody else, if you're not that decision maker at your company, you can send them to the website. You can give them all the information they need. The brochures are in here too. There's some basics about the pricing, and then of course there's that 2 week trial. Yes, some of these tools are free. Any of the tools with the lighter color are tools that are free. You download the trial. Those last longer than that 14 days. You can use those forever. So Part Swapper is one of the tools that we talked about today. That's one of the free tools. Also, Assembly Namer. It's an MTEXT with a AutoCAD field. Talk it back to your assembly. It's pretty cool. Feature line to alignment. Turns a feature line into, well, an alignment and profile. So that's very useful for construction staking for survey firms, or if you want to get that feature line data out to a different program, because it's a pretty unique file format to Civil 3D. And then Survey Sweeper is the delete button that survey processors always wanted, or remove it from your survey database and your DWG at the same time with the click of a button. To answer your question, Bryn, these are neither Autodesk nor technically ATG products. CTC is its own company. It used to be partially an Autodesk reseller. Nowadays, it is just in the game of building add-on tools that interface with Autodesk software. So there's stuff for Civil 3D and there's stuff for Revit as well. And they may or may not be working on some other software that's completely independent of Civil 3 or of the Autodesk universe as well. But right now, their offerings, they're an independent company. ATG is their reseller, kind of like a car dealership model. And then their tools right now are within the Autodesk environment. All right, everybody. So it is looking to be about 20 after. Any more questions from anybody else? More than happy to stick around for another few minutes. My next appointment is at 1, but happy to stay on the line as long as people have conversations and questions to ask. Oh, excellent, Jessica. We meet a lot of people at AU, but I'm glad you have cards. So we will make sure that somebody gets in touch with you about that CIM Manager Suite. And yes, you're welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for your time as well. I think the conversation's dried up enough. Obviously, if you need to get a hold of me, I guess it's not obvious because it's not up on the screen, but my name is Kyle Groves. I'm a technical specialist. My email is down here on the screen, kgroves@atgusa.com. Reach out to me if you're already an ATG customer and have a relationship with one of our sales team members. They can also put you in contact with me too. And thank you so much for your time, everybody, today. I love the fact that we were having so much conversation. And we will see you on the next one. Have a great day.